Let's fly to Africa together. 4 stops milk run, African Express. We were actually invited to the Cockpit.
Looks like Alitalia invested lots of money on their MD.
Landing Berbera was landing onto Mars.
Spoiler deployed.
Emergency space shuttle landing field. They prefer to land from the seaside to avoid any anti-aircraft gunfire. We just landed at Mogadishu, very dangerous city in the world. We don't know what to expect there. We don't have a visa. The DC-930, we boarded from the rear. I walked all the way to the front into the cockpit. We were the only passengers doing this crazy 4-stop milk run. 6 years ago, I took a very interesting trip to Africa. I was so glad to be able to pull off this one. So it was the 4 stops milk run, flight from Dubai via Somalia to Nairobi in Kenya on an airline not so many people know. It's called the African Express. So on this trip, I was joined by my friend Ian and Charles as company, and we were the only passengers doing this crazy 4-stop milk run. Even the airport manager of African Express was impressed. He actually managed to give us an upgrade on board, so we were sitting at the front of the plane. So our first sector on our flight was from Dubai to Berbera. Where exactly Berbera? Berbera is actually in Somaliland at the northern coast. It's a port city. Somaliland was actually an autonomous region separated from Somalia. But right now there's not many foreign countries recognize the independence of Somaliland. So the flight time to Berbera was about 3 hours. We were cruising at 32,000 feet. Once after takeoff, there was a proper but no frills breakfast was served. It wasn't bad.
We're on African Express Airways flight 552, now at 32,000 feet, cruising, flying southwards. We have a GPS here, so we can see. Okay, we're over Oman right now.
So after the breakfast, we were actually invited to the cockpit.
So sir, the MD-80, has this been modified, or this is original what MD-80 cockpit has this kind of electronic display? Because I thought the MD-80 was a lot of meter and gauges. I didn't know they have, this looks like digital. Is this original or?
This has been modified, especially the MD-82 was analog, but this aircraft was modified by Alitalia.
Okay.
And they even improvised head-up display here. That is not standard for the MDs. Also the primary flight display and navigation display, which are different than the original from the manufacturer. And another difference would be this panel.
Nice. Looks like Alitalia invested lots of money on their MD.
Yeah, for sure.
The captain on the MD-80 is from Venezuela. The captain knew exactly what an aviation enthusiast wants and entertained us all the way to Berbera. But because there were 3 Afghans on board and there's only 1 jump seat, we actually had quite a fight and who would take that jump seat. The captain was so kind, he actually offered to take my camera in to record the landing into Berbera. And he put the camera on the dashboard, it was shaking, so the solution was using a piece of tower and put a camera on top of the tower as a cushioning and to stop shaking. So that was very creative. So the temperature was really hot. It soared to 42 degrees while we were approaching to Berbera, and it was really stormy on the sea, and you can see it's very windy. I was told during that time of the year, it was actually a stormy season in June in Somaliland.
200.
Landing Berbera was landing onto Mars. It was so remote, you can't see a city, there's no road. In the middle of nowhere in the desert, there was just one landing strip like that.
10.
Spoiler deployed.
Talk about Berbera Airport is an interesting history. It has a really long runway, over 13,000 feet and 4,000 meters long. It was built by the Soviet Union in the 70s, but it was rented out to NASA as a emergency space shuttle landing field at the cost of $40 million per year. And since then, it probably hasn't been maintained as it is extremely bumpy on the runway. So as it turned out, Berbera doesn't even have a proper terminal. So you can see buses and cars were able to just drive up straight to the plane to pick up passenger and drop off passenger. How convenient is that?
Parking brake set, parking checklist, parking brakes set,
Slabs lot,
rubber tracks,
APO,
and bus,
AC supplies,
right set,
fuel lever,
filler
off, seatbelts,
off,
fuel pumps,
light fan,
collision lights,
off,
sliders,
commanded,
hydraulic pumps,
flight attendants may disarm, cover, and slides. Open main door, please.
right, iron off, parking checklist is complete.
During the turnaround, the captain was kind. He invited us to walk around with him on the plane, and we were taking that opportunity on the ramp, took some photo of an ex-Diallo Airlines Illusion 18. Used to do this run, and now is actually retired and dumped in Berbera. So given there is not even an airport terminal in Berbera, there is no security screening area. So there was just a simple security wand searching by hand at the boarding, joining the queue. So that was leg 1 out of 4 done. Back on the Mad Dog, the next stop is to Mogadishu in Somalia. And from the passenger cabin, all I can notice is the crowd goes into Mogadishu has more of a stern, angrier look, and they're not friendly to the camera for sure.
Hello. What the hell are you?
Battery switch,
Unlocked.
ignition seal, off, anti-skid,
Check an arm.
stall test, check, cabin press control,
It is set for Mogadishu. Neutral.
pneumatic crossfit,
Turn the throttle on.
auto throttle on,
Set. Take off press.
V1, rotate.
It was actually quite an uneventful flight. For the 1.5 hour flight to Mogadishu, drinks were served. I was chatting with the captain, asking them where do they stay in Mogadishu and how's the security situation there. Clearly, it's not the safest city in the world.
They modify cargo containers and they turn them into rooms, and it's comfortable enough. And
Do you normally,
Same.
you don't go outside Mogadishu? You didn't.
Oh, no.
You just stay inside the compound.
Yes,
You
always.
you don't want to. Is there anything you think there's to see, like, or it's
Oh,
too
for sure.
dangerous, too risky to go?
Now it's too risky, but whenever the Somali conflict resolves, I think there's a lot to see, at least in Mogadishu. They have beautiful, nice beach, and probably the town, it has some history to tell, for sure.
So during the approach, the captain was telling me they prefer to land from the seaside into Mogadishu to avoid any anti-aircraft gunfire from the land side. That says how dangerous it was. So even we had a 14 knots of tailwind, we decided to land from the seaside and not take any of the risk.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Spoiler deployed.
So here we go, we just landed at Mogadishu, notoriously known as a very dangerous city in the world. If you notice a lot of container around the airport perimeter, those are actually crew accommodation and UN accommodation. And the airport area is considered a safer area in Mogadishu actually. So Mogadishu was our biggest worry because we don't know what to expect there about the security situation. We are actually transit onto a next plane, a DC-930 from the same airline, African Express, to take us all the way to Kenya. But we were not sure, how do we do this? We don't have a visa. But it turned out the Dubai station manager, African Express, has managed to call ahead to Mogadishu, and somebody actually came that took us across the ramp from our MD-80 all the way to DC-9. So the whole transit turned out to be a piece of cake. Just took 2 minutes. It was that easy, and all our worry went washed away. We were smiling actually in Mogadishu. So we bid farewell to the MD-80 Captain Simone. He's such a nice guy. He even came over to DC-9 and posted picture with us. That was our great memory in Mogadishu. So here we are inside our next flight, a DC-932 ex-Iberia, 1968 built. It was 46-year-old at the time when we flown it. Look at the cabin, it's quite well maintained. You couldn't even tell this old if I don't tell you this, right? So during the boarding, we have some time. I went to the cockpit to chat up with two Kenyan captains heading in the cockpit. They were so nice. They welcomed us and they told us to sit anywhere you like and also allow us to jump seat. That was the hospitality in Africa. It was so cool. So our next stop is a place called Wajir in northern Kenya. And this stop is needed is because of our planes coming from Somalia. Wajir is like a buffer before it will clear us into Nairobi. All the passengers from Somalia must clear immigration and custom in the northern city of Wajir before heading to the capital Nairobi. So all of a sudden we added extra stop in Wajir. I wouldn't able to visit Wajir without any other means. So during this flight, lunch was served from a local restaurant catering. It was no frills again. It was a box of rice pilaf with one banana.
40 cent, 40 indicator.
So my friend Ian took the jump seat for landing into Wajir, while I actually went to the very back to enjoy the engine of the JT-AD.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Landing 5T. Good luck, make 180.
Yeah, requesting 180. Express 5T.
So the stopover in Wajir was about an hour. We were taken off the plane and all the baggage were offloaded on the plane to screen. And then we entered the immigration into Kenya, get our visa and passport stamped, and get back on the plane. And this time we boarded from the rear end of the plane, walking up the stairs. I walked all the way to the front into the cockpit. It is finally my turn to get on the jump seat, now on the final leg, the fourth leg to Nairobi.
Up and long to your flat speed is 151.
So during this flight, what I noticed in the cockpit is the master caution key on the DC-9 was keep coming on, and the captain has to non-stop reset every 2 minutes. The approach into Nairobi was actually really beautiful. The clouds are huge. I love the landscape looking out from the window. I didn't know Nairobi was very high, 5,500 feet above sea level. We landed at 5 o'clock, beautifully smooth touchdown. To me, the most enjoyable part of flying the DC-9 is sitting behind the pilot, watch these fine airmen manually flying the plane from takeoff to landing. Beautiful, unlike all the modern airplanes.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Two lights. Spoilers deployed. 4 lights. 1.4, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. 80 knots.
thinking back, I'm just so glad to pull this trip off. It was seemingly a very risky trip, but at the end, we took the risk and we reaped the reward. These days, the opportunity flying in the cockpit of DC-930 and MD-80 are probably non-existent. I would also like to thank Ian and Charles who joined me on this trip. It was a great companion and also added a lot of courage to do it together. Our aviation friendship was amazing. Thank you so much for watching and listening to my stories.